Dr. Vijay Kishor Tiwari, Assistant Professor of Law, the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Critical Legal Studies, History, and Jurisprudence are his areas of interest. He is passionate to decolonize the legal education system in our country. Dr. Tiwari is presently coordinating Justice Radha Binod Pal Center for Critical Legal Studies, which is also working to make the students of law engage in the subject. Dr. Tiwari himself is a person with disabilities, and being so, he is working to make aware of his students within the classroom and beyond. আপনারা জানেন যে আমরা এই আমাদের এই ডিসেবল পিপলস ফোরাম, এটি মূলত যাদবপুর কেন্দ্রিক একটি যাদবপুরের প্রাক্তন ছাত্র এবং স্কলার যারা ফোরাম ফর স্টুডেন্টস উইথ ডিসেবিলিটিস এর প্রাক্তন কর্মী, তাদের একটি প্ল্যাটফর্ম, এবং আমরা এখানে একাডেমিশিয়ান এবং অ্যাক্টিভিস্টদের মধ্যে একটা ডায়ালগ তৈরি করবার চেষ্টা করি। তারই অঙ্গ হিসেবে আজকের এই বক্তব্য, আজকের এই আলোচনা সভা, mapping contemporary global trends in the disability justice movement and Indian perspective. এই বিষয়ের উপর ডক্টর তিওয়ারি এখন বলবেন। Now may I request Dr. Tiwari to deliver his lecture. Dr. Tiwari.
Thank you, Shaman. I think, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First, my apologies, right, to the audience that I understand Bengali at least to 60 to 70%. So when you were conversing in Bengali and when you speak slowly, I can understand. But I'm not a Bengali speaking person. Primarily because that I studied in Hindi medium, and then when I went to university, I converted it in English medium. When I joined here in 2017 in National University of Juridical Sciences, so our university is primarily an English medium university, and therefore I could survive without, having knowledge of Bengali. Having said this, I would say that I don't want this meeting to be exclusionary for them who do not understand English or Hindi. So if you feel that certain things which I can explain in Hindi, and if you can understand that, please feel free. And in case a certain concept which I'm explaining either in Hindi or English, and if you're not able to understand, I would request Soman to give a Bengali translation to that, right? So that everybody should feel valued and included. Right? Soman, will you help me in that?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Also, one thing I would like to say, I would really like to thank Ms. Shampa Singh Gupta, who I met recently, first online and then offline. And this is my engagement. Though I was engaged in disability writing, I was engaged in disability activism in my university. But when I met her, this is my first time I'm engaging with the disabled community of Bengal. And if I've understood you correctly, it's a kind of several student bodies coming together, including the students of Jadavpur Jadavpur University, etc. And I'm feeling wonderful that I can engage with you guys. So if possible, we would continue our collaboration in future, right? And if I would engage with the movement in this manner, not only in offline programs, but whatever programs you organize, I'm sure that I will understand Bengali, I will understand your demands, your local demands in terms of accessibility inclusion, right? And what is your profound vision in terms of, how you perceive this entire disability justice? So I would urge all of you that please include me in whatever you are doing. Because I got to know that Jadavpur University students did a wonderful job in terms of mapping the entire campus in a braille format, right? I think it's such a profound best practice that every university, including mine, or universities across India, can adopt that model. So congratulations to you guys on that. Um, so I would like to continue my future association. Someone, how much time I have to speak, and do we have time for question and answer? So accordingly, I will make my presentation.
Sir, I think 40 to 45 minutes for the lecture and rest 15 minutes or so for the question and answer.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, that my watch is saying that it's 6:27, right? And I will try to speak but till 6:50, right? And so that we can have 10-15 minutes question answer session, right?
Sure.
Okay. When Showman gave me this topic, I was a little bit perplexed. So we are supposed to map the global disability justice project, how it is going on from an Indian perspective. Now, why I was so perplexed about it? I was literally perplexed because the way I see disability justice project, it's possible that, let's say, I can read few names here: Shayak, Riya, Manimala, Roman, right? They might not see disability justice movement in that particular format. And it's important to appreciate. Why I'm saying so? I'm saying so because when we say disability justice, the primary agenda which is being kind of the way state appreciates or able-bodied people understand that, okay, Shaman and Vijay both are disabled, right? So what could be their primary demand? Accessibility, inclusion, right? So yeah, okay, there is one person who is disabled because of infantile hemiplegia, and there is one person who is disabled because he is visually impaired, etc., etc. So what we need to do, we need to tweak the system in such a way that they should feel included. I take a beef with this issue. I take the beef with this issue because it's like reducing our demand, which is a profound political demand, only in terms of ensuring accessibility and barrier removal. As if we do not have any political agency whatsoever, right? Or Vijay or Thoman cannot disagree on certain other points, right? Or we have only single issue life, that is our disabled life, and our entire thinking revolves around that, right? So, why I'm saying so? I would suggest you that look into the blog written by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 3rd of December on the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. I read that blog and I found it deeply problematic. Why? And you know why? Because I still remember it quite fresh in my memory. because I was reading that blog yesterday itself, right, for preparing for this session. So it starts with this, that uh, the entire 10 years of his government is dedicated to the service of Divyangjan. Our scriptures tell us that we need to respect every individual and her innate potential. His government has taken several steps while previous governments have ignored it. Because of the steps taken by his government, now we have Olympians who are winning medals, right? And the very first step he took is to change the nomenclature from Viklang to Divyang. So these are the primary points he made. And I take beef with all these points enumerated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, it's I particularly would like to problematize it. There is a possibility that some of you might agree with that, and we might have different vision of disability justice. So when I say that I'm going to map the global trend for disability justice, and I'm presenting an Indian perspective, the perspective is partial, meaning thereby the way I appreciate it, right? And certain trends which I appreciate in disability justice, and there are certain trends which I would like to disassociate with. So I will come to that one by one. Now, Prime Minister's blog post, which he wrote, tells you something about the current model of disability, the mainstream model of disability project. Is one, make accessibility and barrier removal your priority. Nobody can have any problem with that. But then present only a segment of disabled people. Let's call them privileged disabled people, as and put them in your official narrative. So, while Prime Minister was projecting that Para-Olympians are doing great and they must be celebrated, I don't have any problem with that. But it is the year of 2024. This is the year when G.N. Sai Baba launched his life, right? And the G.N. Sai Baba endured the worst form of state repression during last 10 years, right? We also have the stories of Stan Swami, who was asking for a sipper, and the government fought against it. We have a story, little known story of Hem Mishra, right? A young man who almost spent 10 years in jail, but because he was young and his disability was not visible, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. Okay, so why when we say that we need to have an Indian perspective while ensuring and mapping the global disability justice project, why am I bringing G.N. Sai Baba or Stan Swami into our discourse? I will come to that. See, the mainstream disability global justice, project, if you talk to people, they start with Americans with disabilities, right? That this is the initial trigger at the global level where, nothing about us without us, right, started. This is where, for the first time, this insular and discrete model kicked in. And United States of America presented as the modular form which can be accepted by other countries of the world, right? Other countries of the world need not to rethink or, tweak that model. Rather, there is a modular form which anybody can accept, right? And ADA is being presented. Remember, um, my students say, this happened this year. That's how we want to celebrate Disability Pride Month. I said, okay, but why so? Uh, so they said, so normally March is being celebrated as Disability Pride Month, and we want to celebrate it. I said, okay, I don't have a problem, but let's discuss about that. And I said, why do we celebrate Disability Pride Month in March? They went and did some research and they said that ADA came into being, uh, this, this, this particular month, and across the world it is being celebrated as Disability Pride Month. I said, okay, do you know that should we celebrate it? Because USA is a country, right? A sovereign country, much like us, right? It has its own municipal legislation, and we are told that it's a cause of celebration for all of us. For all of us, we should feel pride in that. While USA itself has never ratified even a convention on people with disability. Do you know that? US has not ratified even convention on people with disability, right? So they did not ratify so far, right? And we are told that their municipal legislation, their national legislation is a cause of celebration for all of us. I would also like to use another provocation. In 2024, the war in Gaza is continuing. And I'm not, very mindfully not using that the war between Israel and Palestine is going on. It's not, because war is when there are two equal parties fighting each other. There's one party which has all the available military resources, and there is a group of people who are enduring that violence of the secular colonialism. I would urge all of you, whenever you get time, to read this book by Jasbir Puar. And she talks about the idea, the book is named as Right to Me, how Israel projects its care for LGBTQ plus people and disabled people to valorize and justify its occupation over Palestine. The primary argument Israel makes is, look, we are a democracy and we can protect LGBTQ plus and disabled people. If there would be a state of Palestine, LGBTQ plus people and disabled people will not get that kind of a care. Now, Jasbir Puar points this out, that you cannot pink wash or disability wash your secular colonialism. So what I'm trying to suggest, and at the same time, you cannot, continue to produce mass disability and mass debilitation in the people of Palestine by bombing them, by having your imperial solutions for Palestine. You cannot do that. Now, when my students came to me that they want to celebrate this Disability Pride Month, I asked this question. and I asked about the support, the kind of support US is giving to Israel. And I asked them, do you really still want to celebrate your pride? Because there is one country which has its national legislation passed somewhere in March 1950s, which is still continuing its imperial solution, supports secular colonialism, etc., etc. I think that I was able to convince my students that we must take pride in our disability. We are a part of plural, and we must attempt to center the world around our embodiment. But that does not mean that we need to just take the American modular form of, disability justice. So that is what I'm using as a provocation. So then what, according to me, is a disability justice paradigm? There is a performing group by, the performing group belongs to indigenous, non-white people, right? And they have come up with a very interesting, and they use a very interesting, nomenclature to represent themselves, right? They call themselves as sins invalid, right? The ones who are considered sins and who are considered invalid, right? Again, I will just to make my point clear, I take a beef with what Prime Minister is doing by coinaging, the term Divyang, right? As if we have a divinity, right, in us, right? And it's very much like the term Harijan, which was coined by Mahatma Gandhi, right? And Dr. Ambedkar took beef with it, and he said that I would prefer the term suppressed classes or Dalits, right? So when you use terms like Divyang, etc., it does not authentically represent a reality, lived reality, right? And worldwide, people, right? Like for example, LGBTQ plus people have taken this term here, not as a pejorative, but as a mark of assertion. We have seen this, movement where the word script has been taken as a mark of assertion of agency, right? So, since invalid, right? I absolutely love this particular, framework where they have pointed out. They say, and I would like to quote that point for you, right? Uh, so, it's since invalid is a disability justice-based performance project that incubates and celebrates artists with disabilities, centralizing artists of color and LGBTQ plus and gender variant group artists. Now, what I'm just going to read one paragraph, and then we can have a debate on, that, or we can have a conversation, a dialogue in a democratic spirit. They point out ableism, right, coupled with white supremacy, ableism coupled with white supremacy, supported by capitalism, underscored by heteropatriarchy, has rendered the vast majority of the world invalid. I would like to repeat again, and then we should all ponder upon it, right? Ableism, right, coupled with white supremacy, supported by capitalism, underscored by heteropatriarchy, has rendered the vast majority of the world invalid. I don't know how many of you have seen or, perceived this, a Vitruvian man concept by Leonardo da Vinci, right? The perfect normal body is the European bourgeois liberal body, a body of a white man, and others, right? like the body of disabled people, the body of a woman, the body of a trans woman, etc., etc., are considered deviant bodies. Now, in that framework, what happens that we are all told that there is a compulsory abled bodism. Therefore, I take beef again with the Prime Minister's approach, where he says, oh, determination, courage, etc., etc. When we urge all this determination and courage, right? So all of us here, why should we have determination and courage? So that we can perform like able-bodied people, right? The question has to be asked differently. Why should we perform like an able-bodied people? We have our own performativity. We perform in our own way. We take our own time. We have our own way of understanding things, right? And therefore, we are part of plural, right? But instead, what is expected from us to have courage, determination, etc., so that our disability can be mitigated, right? It is not taken as a marker of plurality, but the entire, thrust of the governmental policies is that, okay, we somehow will make sure that their disability is mitigated. There is a scholar, her name is Fiona Kumari Campbell, right? And she points this out that when you have this kind of approach, that everybody with determination, with courage, etc., they can mitigate their disability, then you always continue to valorize ableist paradigm. Just give me a minute. I think my headphone was getting discharged. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Right? So Fiona Kumari Campbell gives a definition of ableism, and I would urge all of you to listen to this very carefully. So Fiona Kumari Campbell defines ableism as a network of beliefs, processes, and practices that produce a particular kind of a self and body, or the bodily standard that is projected as perfect, right? Species typical and therefore fully human. And once you place, a certain kind of bodily type as the perfect body type, then disability is cast as a diminished state of being human. So just because somebody is visually impaired or somebody is, is having some kind of a difficulty running, his or her being becomes an inferior being human, right? So the perfect form comes as the quote unquote normal bodies. And then we need to have, determination, courage, etc., to make sure that we behave like normal people, That's the ability trouble. I'm using this term from one scholar, McRuer, who took it from Judith Butler. And Judith Butler points this out in terms of question of gender, where trans people are told, that you need to behave in a particular heterosexual manner, right? And therefore you will continue hiding or mitigating your trans, existence. So in the same way, when this courage and, courage and, determination is talked about, we are told and that you need to perform like an able-bodied people. And the entire life of us, is gone into continue to make ourselves more aligned with the being an able body. Now, that is the ability trouble, because ultimately we are disabled, right? And we are disabled and we do things differently, and that can never be made mainstream by them, and therefore we will continue to long for these ableist frameworks, and we will continue to believe that we are inferior beings, and if we have to achieve anything, we need to show that we can do things like them, right? Things like them meaning the able-bodied people, or therefore we need to show some kind of a spectacular, you know, things to the world, like being awarded, etc., etc., right? I take beef with these things, and I would urge all of you to look and appreciate uh, your being as well, right? Quickly on the what are the a prime minister again said that when he said that the previous government and opposition parties did not do enough, I said, this is not true actually. This is not true. Look, one thing which our disabled existence has taught us that we are interdependent, right? This very individualistic idea, I think, therefore I am, right? What Adam Smith said, the concept of Homo economicus, the one who is always in the pursuit of his self, interest and selfish interest. Uh, we realize through our disabled existence that it's not actually the correct way of being in the world. I still remember when I was student, right? I was in a Marxist circle. So I read a critique of Karl Marx of the rights frame, and he said that these liberal rights are being given to individuals as if these individuals are an egoistic being, cut off from their surroundings and cut off from their cultural and social moorings, right? So, what happens that, uh, you know, um, Arjun, I will take your question. Just let me finish in 7 minutes. Um, you know, um, this particular approach of Homo economicus and everybody should be given, neoliberal citizenship according to that is a bit problematic. So I'm not saying that opposition parties were always very sensitive or sensible towards our needs, but we have seen people like Sitaram Achuri who has been very proactive on the disability justice project, right? We have also seen the previous government, the UPA government, uh, which ratified, UN Convention came in 2006. The India became party in 2007, right? We have a Sudha Call Committee, etc., etc. The act which came into 2016 was the culmination of all these efforts, right? So, suggesting that the previous government and opposition parties did not do enough is somewhat a bit of a misreading of the history. Anyways, why I'm saying that look, if you just mark this history of disability movement across the globe, and even in India, I think Professor Nilika Malhotra has written a wonderful piece in EPW, right, mapping these movements in India. Uh, I would urge all of you. I cannot go into the details of that article, but that's a wonderful article. You should go into that. So it comes with like the Global Disability Project is. It came in the biomedical model. We all know that, right? And then there was the evidence of social model of disability. And this Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability is influenced by social model of disability that takes into the account the disabling effect of our social structures, right? And it also provides a fluid, uh, malleable reading of the disability itself, right? And it states, I would like to, state one particular, from a paragraph from the preamble of the convention. Uh, Disability is an evolving concept, and that the disability results from intersection between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinder their full participation in the society on an equal basis with others, right? So, so if you see the social model of disability, it gives a broader and a more sensible reading of the disability, right? And that is why the word disabled is no longer a pejorative. It says that we are disabled because of, societal attitudes, because of these barriers, etc. And therefore, I have my problem with the terms like Divyang, etc. Okay? So, uh, currently we are within the social model of disability, but this is not to suggest that, the social model of disability is the be all and end all. In fact, the human rights model has come, and I would urge all of you, can there be a possibility of a global south model of disability, right? Where we can approach it from our lived experiences. Uh, Final point I would like to urge with a provocation here, and we can have a discussion. Every now and then I see these, um, social media posts, etc. I'm not very active on that, but I get to know where people talk about um, their harrowing experiences at airports, etc. Especially airports. I say that, and I think Supreme Court of India has recently, in Arushi Singh case, has given a judgment how to make airports accessible. But this particular aspect also makes us think that whether our Indian disability movement has a class issue. Why am I saying so? And this is not a new point which I am making. I'm trying to suggest this, which Professor Anita Ghai has already suggested in, I think, her 15, 20 years old, paper. And she says that India's disability movement suffer from, middle class problem, where certain middle class people, disabled people, primarily define their issue, a disability justice, in their own, experience. So because they can speak English, they can articulate themselves in that way. So primarily they look into, accessibility of airports, etc., etc. Well, the majority of disabled people come from downtrodden classes, and their issues of accessibility is never featured. Moreover, a disabled can be a Muslim, right? A disabled can be a Dalit, right? A disabled can be a woman, right? And we do not live the single issue life. So imagine, while I might be like, today I'm coming from Ahmedabad, I must have seen, certain accessibility problem when sometimes my disability is invisible, and then I have to go into the security checking, and it's a harrowing experience. But if that I superimpose, then who would talk about the experiences of a Muslim disabled who might be suffering from certain other problems like bulldozer justice, etc. His brother might be in jail, right? His house might have been demolished. He might be living under the threat of, NRC, CAA, etc., etc. Who's going to talk about his experience of being a disabled at the same time being a social disabled as well. So I would urge you that there is no one Indian perspective. There are multiple Indian perspectives. At the same time, there is no one global justice project. There are global justice projects, right? And therefore, we need to talk in a plural language. And I feel, and I stand by my statement that India's disability movement needs to go to the at the bottom where the people who are at the receiving end of state violence, at the receiving end of poverty, etc., etc. They should talk about their experiences, and their voices should come into the debate of accessibility and disability justice. So thank you all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak on that. And I promise you, if you will engage me with your movement, I will definitely learn Bengali. It's a beautiful language. It's the language of my favorite poet, Rabindranath Tagore. I would definitely love to learn. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tiwari. We are really privileged to have you, and thanks for this interesting lecture, especially at a time when the values of plural societies is depleting day by day. আমরা আমাদের কোয়েশ্চেন আনসার সেশন শুরু করব। আমি আপনাদেরকে সবাইকেই বলছি যে আপনারা চাইলে বাংলাতে বা হিন্দিতেও আপনাদের প্রশ্ন রাখুন, এটাতে কোনো সমস্যা হবে না। আচ্ছা, আমি প্রথমেই সম্পাদি কিছু বলবেন। আমি সম্পাদিকে রিকোয়েস্ট করছি যদি উনি কিছু বলেন। সম্পাদি প্লিজ।
Thank you, Shomen. Thank you, Vijay, for this lecture. What I just wanted to add, it's both a comment and a question, is because we know that disability is an evolving concept which has been mentioned in the CRPD, and which is the definition of disability is from CRPD has been copied in our own law, RPD Act. But again, in our law, it says there are 21 categories of disability. So now this is very interesting. So suppose I have a disability, say Parkinson's, since you talked about Stan Sawani, who was denied a SIPR when he was in the prison. And so few of us from the disability movement was talking about it. And Parkinson's is a disability which has been newly added, which even within the movement we were not talking about prior to 2016. So until and unless the law said that this is a disability. So this makes me think always is because there are we do get invitations to different international meetings and things, and sometimes they say for disabled people there will be no registration fee, and for non-disabled. So, but in different countries, disability is the categories are different. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So it's a very complicated issue also. Like it's not just like you said, there cannot be one global disability movement. And like it's very interesting because I have a lot of friends from Bangladesh who are the disability movement, and the current Bangladesh regime on 3rd December, they also accept 3rd December as their National Disability Day. So that has been accepted many years ago. So they brought out with a notice, the government, in which the terms used are প্রতিবন্ধী মানুষ যারা অসম্পূর্ণ এবং অসঙ্গতিপূর্ণ. It's the terms which means the people who are incomplete. So it's a very derogatory way of saying. So suddenly these people, our Bangladeshi friends are writing about that because all of a sudden government have come out with this kind of statement. So for every country there will be a different issue, I think. And apart from the general, like the caste, class, and the religion minority issue, these are also something which we need to ponder about. Uh, আমি কি বাংলায় এটা বলে দেবো, কারণ অনেকটা বলেছি, আমি ধীরে ধীরে বলেছি, আশা করি সবাই বুঝতে পেরেছেন।
একটু বলুন দিদি, মানে একটু বললে ভালো হয়।
আচ্ছা, আমি দুটো দুটো জিনিস বললাম। একটা হচ্ছে যেটা প্রফেসর তিওয়ারি বলেছেন যে ইউএন কনভেনশন বলছে ডিসেবিলিটি একটা ইভলভিং কনসেপ্ট, অর্থাৎ প্রতিবন্ধকতার ধারণাটাই কিন্তু পরিবর্তিত হচ্ছে, এটা কোনো ফিক্সড একটা আইডিয়া নয়। এবং আমরাও যারা প্রতিবন্ধী মুভমেন্টের সঙ্গে আছি, আমি আমাদের দেশের কথাই বলছি, আমরা স্ট্যান স্বামীর জন্য অনেক কথা বলেছিলাম, দাবি করেছিলাম ওনাকে পেপার দেওয়া হোক ইত্যাদি, কিন্তু ওনার পার্কিনসন্স ছিল। এবার পার্কিনসন্স ডিজিজটাকে প্রতিবন্ধকতার ক্যাটেগরি হিসেবে ইনক্লুড করা হয়েছে 2016 আইনে। তার আগে কিন্তু পার্কিনসন্স নিয়ে আমরা প্রতিবন্ধী আন্দোলনেও কথা বলতাম না। তার মানে আমার দেশের আইন ঠিক করে দিচ্ছে যে কারা প্রতিবন্ধী হবে, কারা হবে না। এবং প্রত্যেকটা দেশ তো আলাদা আলাদা ক্যাটেগরি আছে, সেটা একটু বলতে চাইলাম। এবার ফলে আমরা যদি বলি গ্লোবাল মুভমেন্ট, আন্তর্জাতিক মুভমেন্ট তো করা মুশকিল, কারণ প্রত্যেক দেশের তো অন্য অন্য ক্যাটেগরি আছে। আর একটা বিষয় যেটা বললাম যে আমাদের প্রতিবেশী দেশ বাংলাদেশে, এবারে ওদের দেশে অনেক বছর থেকেই ৩০ ডিসেম্বরটাকে আলাদা করে জাতীয় প্রতিবন্ধী দিবস হিসেবেও পালন করা হয়। তো এইবারে এখন যে নতুন ওদের যে সরকার আছে, তারা একটা নোটিশ বার করেছে, সেখানে এই দিবসটার কথা বলতে গিয়ে প্রতিবন্ধী মানুষদের লিখেছে অসম্পূর্ণ এবং অসঙ্গতিপূর্ণ। এবং এইটা নিয়ে ন্যাচারালি এবার ওরা এটা নিয়ে অনেক বেশি কথা বলছে, কিন্তু আমাদের জন্য দিব্যাং নিয়ে বলাটা যতটা প্রয়োজনীয়, ওদের জন্য তো সেটা নয়। ওরা তো এই ভাষা ব্যবহার নিয়ে কথা বলবে। ফলে প্রত্যেকটা দেশে তো কোথাও একটা আলাদা আলাদা মুভমেন্টও তৈরি হচ্ছে। এটা আমি মানে এটা একটা কোশ্চেনের থেকেও বেশি কমেন্ট, কিন্তু এটা নিয়ে যদি বিজয় আরো কিছু বলতে চান তাহলে ভালো লাগবে। আর আমার মনে হয় এগুলো নিয়ে আমাদের নিজেদের আলোচনাটা বেশি দরকার, ভাবনা চিন্তাটা দরকার। থ্যাংক ইউ।
I think these are very profound comments, Shampa. That's why your insights always help me. With regard to your question, the same question came in terms of Convention for Child Rights, because the standard format of definition of, how to define a child is 18 years. But then, there are cultural variations. And those cultural variations were, like, for example, in our own country, for Muslim marriage, we consider the age of marriage within the Muslim society, the age of puberty, right? So these questions were there, how to define a child, right? Can we take a particular standard format, etc., etc.? I think, just a small pointers about international law, that when a convention is being formed, state parties can give their reservations to it, right? So, and when they make reservation, they can so they can decide to become party to that convention, and then subsequently ratify in their parliament, and that's how they can perform their obligation within that convention, or they can refuse to become a party. There's a third aspect to that a state party is a party to the convention, but it has certain reservation with regard to, certain clauses of those conventions. So like Islamic Republic of Iran had certain, objections to the Child Rights Convention. It said that we cannot accept this definition, etc., etc. What is so unique about this UN Convention on Disability is, and when we say about the evolving, as a concept, evolving concept, um, I'm sure that in your daily interaction as a disability activist, disability justice activist, and I also as a teacher here and as part of certain committees at the university, we encounter these problems. So when we were drafting a policy about persons with disability in NUJS, a question came to my mind: should we include type 1 diabetic people within the ambit of our policy, right? Because type 1 diabetic people are those people whose pancreas does not produce insulin or does not produce enough insulin. Now, it's a kind of invisible disability. And if we would have included them in our policy, then we would have made certain reasonable accommodation, like having a fridge, right, in the administrative block where they can put their insulin, etc. But ultimately, that proposal was not accepted by the Executive Council because, again, the kind of fixated definition they take that, okay, they have already expanded from 3 to 21. And if these, disabilities would not fall within those 21 disabilities, we are not going to include. Moreover, I would like to point out what happens when certain new categories are being included within the disability paradigm in a very ableist society. So here is my personal experience, which I would like to share all of you. Without the consent of my father, apologies to him, but I would like to share something. So my father, in the second wave of COVID, was extremely affected. I was here in Calcutta and he was admitted in Lucknow. At that time, my wife was pregnant and, second wave was so horrible that I could not go and meet him, right? He was admitted for 15 days. He survived, thankfully. But then the long COVID continued, and then he developed Parkinson's disease. Right? So he suffers from Parkinson's. Now, this is a category of a disability. Now, my father has two sons. One is me, who suffers from infantile hemiplegia, and another is my younger brother, who is a Down syndrome, person. Now, when he got to know that he suffers from Parkinson's and he can avail certain benefits, which government provide to persons with disabilities, he was quite resistant to that idea, right? And he still does not take those benefits, and he says, no, I would not take it, right? Because he still, even being as a father of two disabled, sons, he is not able to comprehend this idea that the disability has dawned upon him, right? So we live in a very, very complex society where disability is being seen as a taboo. A father of two disabled sons is not able to somewhat make peace with that he too has now, at the age of 78, a disability. So we live in the very complex issue which is playing out at my yeah. I think Arjun has written question, right? Arjun Ghosh, I think.
Arjun Ghosh sent a written question.
Good evening.
Prime Minister. Yes, Arjun.
Using the term Divyangjan instead of Viklam, what initiatives are being taken to this terminology in public schools? Additionally, how is addressing the societal barrier that lead many to feel disabled by them rather than impairment. Okay, the first thing about Divyangjan, and Shampa can weigh in here. When the term came, Divyangjan, right? I was a student, much like you guys. I was doing my masters at NLS Bangalore, and I did not have sufficient language to articulate my theory on that. But I realized that that term is problematic, right? Now I articulate it, but Divyang Jan, to best of I read into that. Hardly there was a consultation. In fact, there was an IS officer who was very pro BJP government, who sent letter to few states that what steps you are taking to change the term from Viklang to Divyang, etc., etc. And few NGOs were sent letters, 5 NGOs I think, and 2 NGOs, that's what Dr. Satyen Singh told me, said that they never got any such NGO. But these kind of, cosmetic stakeholder consultation, etc., doesn't, make that, okay, these are very important consultations. Also, you see, this Chandra Chud came up with this handbook on persons concerning with disability. I wrote a kind of a piece on his disability jurisprudence. He talks about many problematic terms, but the handbook simply skips the point of problematizing the term Divyang. So that is there. Also, with regard to the second part of your question, I would like to quickly cover that because I really want Shampa to weigh in on the Divyangjan. How is addressing the societal variant feel disabled by their environment rather than? Yeah, obviously, the societal barrier, Arjun Ghosh, I think you are my student because I have a student named Arjun Ghosh with whom I wrote paper. And I think we have this discussion many a times together. It's like this, that there are certain barriers, like also social disabilities, like being Dalit and disabled. Think about it. Being Muslim and disabled. Think about it, right? So these societal barriers and also, social disabilities play a role, in making our disability more pronounced, right? So obviously we need to continuously work on that, removing those societal barriers. Shampa, do you want to weigh in on Divyangjan and the kind of consultation which took place?
No, I think there should be more question and answer from younger people.
Okay.
আচ্ছা, তাহলে আর কেউ প্রশ্ন করতে পারেন, আরো যারা করতে চান আর কি। কেউ তো এখনো হাত তোলেননি।
Somebody was trying to write something. Is written as
অঙ্কনা মজুমদার কিছু লিখছেন আপনি। হ্যাঁ, ডক্টর গৌতম মাঝি, আপনি গৌতম দা বলো। গৌতম দা হাত তুলেছেন।
হ্যাঁ, ঠিক। Thank you, sir, for your wonderful explanation. Actually, I want to ask, not in religious model, but social model. Religion is getting much importance in Indian scenario. So you have already told in various ways that physical fitness is one of the best way to explain the disability discourses in worldwide and India also. But how could you explain when some of our gods and goddesses, mainly we think good-looking men or women and handsome men and women, but there are some gods and goddesses in so-called Hindu religion or Brahmanical thinking, like Jagannath Dev, who actually do not have legs and hands. And besides that, there is a goddess Mansa, who is an one-eyed woman. So we worshipped these gods and goddesses in India, and on the other hand, we neglect the disabled person. So how would you explain, and what is your explanation in this aspect, this dichotomy actually, if you explain?
Right. Thank you for asking this question, because that is a very important question, you know. So, uh, and this entire discourse, Divyang also comes from this religious connotation. And especially in a religious country like that, can we really escape this religious model of disability? Uh, I don't know whether my answer will, somewhat, make you content in terms of your question, but here is my answer. Taking the religious model, and be it any religious model, I cannot comment on the Islamic model or Christian model because I'm not aware of their mythology. But I would definitely comment on the taking the Hindu religious model for the disability justice project. And you have also clearly pointed out that we have gods and goddesses which have certain disabled characteristics, and we worship them. And again, Prime Minister in his blog has mentioned that he quoted the words from Ramayana that to suggest that our religion celebrates innate potential of a disabled being. The problem with taking this religious model is that it's quite ambivalent, and also if we take it in its entirety in a comprehensive way, religion also places the marginal bodies like disabled bodies and the Dalit bodies, right, and women bodies in a suppressed way. So let me just give you a few examples. We are told that the clan of Dhritarashtra was not on the right side of history, right? But whatever succession rule was there, right? Whatever succession rule was there, it should have gone to Dhritarashtra if he would not have been a visually impaired person. So why did it not go to Dhritarashtra? Because he was a visually impaired person. And therefore, it did not go to Duryodhana, who was the eldest son of Dhritarashtra. So here comes the religious mythology, which disbars Dhritarashtra to claim his, to stake his claim for the throne when an able-bodied son was available. That was Pandu. The second example I would like to give from Shambhu in Ramayana. What was the fault of Shambhu? He was a Dalit, he was doing Upasana, and supposedly it went against the given duties within the caste hierarchy. What was the fault of Eklavya? Right? He was an excellent student, but the Guru asked for his time, right? And then made him disabled. See, Eklavya was made disabled by the society. It's not the societal barrier. He was made disabled because he was debilitated by the caste hierarchy. Right? Now, coming to your question, we have this Raja Ravi Verma fixation. Right? All our Hindu gods and goddesses are more white than white people. Do you really think that Indian gods and goddesses are that white, which is being presented in calendars? Right? They don't have brown skin. They don't have, they're white also. So It's true, it was the imagination of Raja Ravi Verma which we continue. Coming back to certain disabled, gods and goddesses. And in other Eastern philosophies, you will find that people say disabled people are oracles and all that, right? We also worship, Durga and Kali. But what is the societal reality of women in our society? Uh, you know, I studied in quite an informal way in Delhi University, where professors used to take some study circles where they used to sit and just chat with us and talk about many things. So I was sitting in one such classroom, not classroom, it was just open chat, and a sociology professor pointed this out, that read any Breath Katha, right? And the Breath Katha goes like this, that there is a woman, a very devoted woman to her husband, and her entire life is that you need to perform these activities in order to make sure that the God is happy, and therefore your husband is happy. And if husband is happy, he will take care of you, and that will make the family happy. Then it so happened that I went to my native place and I read at least 4 or 5 Bachkathas which my mother had, and it was true. Is it not a kind of a discursive practice which is being given to, women in order to just accept her subordination in the society? So just because we might be worshipping few gods and goddesses which are, in they're disabled, projected as disabled, that does not really help us in achieving our, disability justice. Yes, I think there is a comment in the chat box.
Onkona Mojumdar,
Yes.
she is writing, sorry for misunderstanding. I am requesting sir/madam to highlight about disabled aggressive vocabulary that even used today society as a term of abuses. I think the term Divyangjan comparable to the vocabulary sense today.
I agree with you. There's I appreciate the point you have clearly understood that.
Okay. I think অনির্বাণদা কিছু বলবে। অনির্বাণ মুখার্জি, আমি অনির্বাণদাকে বলছি। অনির্বাণ মুখার্জি, disability rights activist. অনির্বাণদা বলো।
Well, good evening. Actually, I was listening to this deliberation of Professor Tiwari, and thank you very much for pointing out, and also Shampadi. I've listened to her intervention as well. Now, actually, what I wanted to come in on is about the question of my dear friend Dr. Gautam Maji, and about Jagannath being worshipped and other disabled people like Jagannath, in a sense, they are looked down upon. So if we look at if we go into the sort of narrative, if we go into the story that is being spun around Lord Jagannath, it is not one of disability. Actually, what they say, the devotees of Lord Jagannath, and what the legend behind Lord Jagannath is, that it is a body which is being renewed. So it is not a completely formed body as yet. It is being formed and reformed from time to time. So the body is not complete. So according to this concept or disability, as Professor Tiwari was telling us, that it's kind of a fixed identity or a fixed marker of identity. So when you say that it's a body which is being formed and reformed from time to time, that actually negates the disability. So that is a clever spin on Lord Jagannath being disabled. So that is a problem with this. So that is why we can worship a God who is apparently disabled, but we cannot
I think the connection lost.
take people, we cannot respect or we cannot give disabled people a dignified life, just or a permanent marker.
মাঝখানটা একটু কেটে গেল তোমার কথাটা।
কোনখানটা কেটে গেছে আমি তো বুঝতে পারিনি, বলো কোন জায়গাটা।
তুমি আরেকবার অনেকটা অংশ কেটে গেছে। হ্যাঁ,
my point is if we look at the story of Lord Jagannath, the story that is being that is being spun around the legend, that is he is a god who is not yet being formed. And if we delve deeper into the story of Lord Jagannath, we will see that the king and the queen, they actually disobeyed the orders of God Vishwakarma, and they opened the chamber early. That's what rendered Jagannath not fully formed. So it again boils down to what should I say? Discrimination angle of women comes in, because it is in the behest of the queen that the king forced open the gate, and Lord Jagannath came out not fully formed. And as the story goes, Lord Jagannath is formed and reformed from time to time. Now, for a person with disability who looks like Lord Jagannath, the society perceives him to be a completely formed person. So there is no possibility of any redemption. So it's a permanent marker of disability affixed to the man. But as far as the God is concerned, there is a possibility of him being reborn and him being reformed to a complete, perfect God. That is where the dichotomy lies as far as Lord Jagannath is concerned. Okay, that was my intervention actually. And once again, I thank Professor Tiwari for a very illuminating intervention.
Thank you, Anirban. And this was a very profound intervention you made, right? That even the Lord Jagannath is trying to be complete in a very to become an abled body finally, right? So ultimately, it does not valorizes our disabled existence. It again goes into the same ableist narrative. So wonderful intervention. Thank you.
Okay, তাহলে is there anyone else wish to put question? আর কি কেউ আপনারা আপনাদের প্রশ্ন বলবেন? মানে
sorry, I have a question.
হ্যাঁ, জসিম উদ্দিন। হ্যাঁ, জসিম,
allow me, kindly I
হ্যাঁ জসিম বল, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
sorry, am I audible now?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
Actually, my question is disability. This word, if we normally understand that lack of ability, it is negation normally. I have heard or I have seen maybe that a part of abnormality, that is deficiency. So there we find disability means lack of ability, maybe in different way. But the main focus, actually I would like to focus on the main question, that is if someone has extra limb deficiency, lack of limb maybe, who has not one eye or one hand, that is lack of any limb, that is deficiency. But if someone has extra limb, means someone maybe there he has 6 fingers or extra head, I have seen. So there should we call him disability or something else?
Right. So interesting question. I will give you this answer, but I'm trying to be not very academically complex here, but bear with me. It's a complex answer. Look, the discipline of linguists that tells us that words assume new meaning, and also they lose the older meaning. So, as you pointed out, that disability in the current understood the lack of ability, etc. That's okay. But the word disabled has assumed a new meaning altogether within the disability justice movement, right? So, so what we call it's a kind of a post-structural way that a new meaning may emerge when we assert our presence, we put ourselves in our own story. So, like the word script is now being taken as a mark of assertion. So, I would urge you, and it's a good fair point which I'm trying to make, is that don't fixate with the dictionary meaning. Rather, we can invest these terms with our agency and assertion, and we can create a new meaning altogether. About the extra link question, the question should be understood in this way. I think Anirban, when he was making his very important intervention, said it in many ways, that there is a modular way of, a perfect way of, being in the world. And that is a particular heterosexual bourgeois, body and liberal body, right? Any deviation from that, be it, not having a limb or having an extra limb, is considered deviation, right? So I don't know whether it will be called a disability or not, but it is again considered a deviant model of body. That too, again, we need to. Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Shaman, I have one request.
I think this is going to be our last question for today.
Yes.
Professor
Because
Chandranath
my
Saha,
comment
Chandranath
today-
Da, he will ask the question. Chandranath Da.
Thank you, Showman, and thank you, Professor Tiwari, for such a thought-provoking and wonderful deliberation of yours. My question is that as we are seeing that the vocabulary is changing, it's a evolving vocabulary, that is disability, and at the same time we are also witnessing that political language is also in conformity with that change. Now, how would you relate that in our case, in the question of the disability, that's the Banga and all, and this, that is, language is becoming more popular, political language is becoming more popular. Does it, yes, I think you have understood my question, yes.
Yes, I get that point. That is why my problem with the Divyang here. And first, my apologies. Sorry, I did not want to interrupt Showman because I'm getting some wonderful questions and I would love to answer all of them. But what I expect that our collaboration will continue, and whenever someone will invite me, I will definitely come to Jadavpur campus. It so happened that I'm traveling this morning, right? So my body is a little bit tired. So I said that this will be my last question, which I would answer. I appreciate your question. Again, it's such a wonderful audience which appreciate all these political points which I made. Look, the political language always has a state backing. It has a backing of the state, a massive state which has economic resources, which has the resources for communication, etc., etc. A resistant language, which will be, let's say, don't call us young, right, does not have those kind of a massive resources. So there is a certain linguistic formation, which is, let's say, the language of the state, which has lot of backing, etc. And that is why my problem with this handbook, which was being released by Justice, that you are saying, oh, don't say this, don't say that. You talked about all these English language words, but in India, disabled people are called Divyang, and you shied away from questioning or problematizing that. What does it tell us, right? So, because the Supreme Court of India would have problematized, it would have put the government on a back foot, right? So that's one, right? But at the same time, I would urge all of us, to engage with the revolutionary possibilities of certain other terms and language, right? Uh, which we must in the regional, like what could be the Bangla slang which can be used as a mark of assertion within the within Bangla literature, right, or Bangla disability justice movement, or within Hindi, etc. Like for example, the crip word has been taken to mark, a wonderful assertion. Remember this. Again, the final provocation I'm giving, right, is this that one reading of the Constitution is that Constitution is very inclusive document. But is this so? Is it so? Your Constitution does not mention you in the fundamental right chapter, that chapter which is legally enforceable. In DPSC, it mentions in Article 39 disability and disablement, but it does not mention persons with disability as a group, right? Also, there's one historian, Rohit Day, who has written People's History of the Constitution, talks about that when the Constitution was formed, the Deaf Society of India made a representation that we should be included in that, right? And they got a response from the Constituent Assembly Secretariat, right, that we have given you adult franchise, and that will take care of your needs, etc. And the society reacted very angrily on that, right? So we did not have any representation whatsoever. Also, there might be people with invisible disabilities, but then, during those times, nobody wanted to, clearly state that I'm a disabled person, right? So our marginal situatedness in the Constitution itself is a question, right? Bangladesh Pratibandhi is done, right? At some point, right? So we need to look into that. An innovative reading of the Constitution is needed. Innovative linguistic readings are needed, right? And that's very, very important. And we must always resist this kind of a top-down approach, which gives us terms like Harijan or Divyangjan. It's demeaning. Yes.
Okay, Shampadi commented, Bangla term Pratibandhi is very progressive. It means one who faces barriers. This term is used since prior to UNCRPD being drafted. Okay. I think success of a discussion can be decided not by the answers it gives, but by the questions it raises. আমরা আজকের এই আলোচনা থেকে অনেকগুলো প্রশ্নের জন্ম প্রশ্ন আমাদের মধ্যে দেখা দিয়েছে, এবং আমরা আশা করব যে, এবং যেটা আমাদের ডক্টর তিওয়ারি বলেওছেন যে ভবিষ্যতে উনি আমাদের সঙ্গে কাজ করবেন, প্রতিবন্ধী অধিকার আন্দোলনের মধ্যে আমরা ওনাকে পাবো। এটা আমাদের কাছে অত্যন্ত আনন্দের বিষয়, এবং উনি ওনার মতো তো করছিলেনই এটা, কিন্তু পশ্চিমবঙ্গের প্রতিবন্ধী অধিকার আন্দোলনের ক্ষেত্রে এটা একটা বড় কাজ হবে বলে আমরা আশা করি। আর ভবিষ্যতে আজকের আলোচনা থেকে যে সমস্ত প্রশ্ন এসছে, এই প্রশ্নগুলোকে নিয়ে আমরা পরবর্তী আলোচনাগুলোতে আবার বসবো, চর্চা করব। এবং যেটা সম্পাদীয় বলেছেন যে আমরা নিজেদের মধ্যে চর্চা করলে তবেই আমাদের এই ভবিষ্যতের যে কর্মপন্থা সেটা আরো ভালো হবে, মানে সেটা আরো সঠিক এবং জোরালো হবে, আমরা নিজেদেরকেও আরো বেশি শিক্ষিত করতে পারবো। ফলে আজকের এই আলোচনাটা সার্থক হয়েছে এবং we are really thankful to Professor Tiwari for giving us this precious time. And also I would like to extend my thanks to Sampadi and other senior disability rights activists present here, not to mention associates and friends of Disabled People's Forum and other guests. And I would like to thank lastly to Jishu. He worked from behind. এবং আমি আপনাদের সবাইকে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানে আসার জন্য ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। আপনারা এতক্ষণ আমাদের সঙ্গে ছিলেন, ভবিষ্যতেও আমরা আশা করি আপনাদেরকে পাশে পাবো। সো গুড নাইট টু এভরিবডি, শুভরাত্রি।
Thank you, Showman. It was nice, having this lecture and these wonderful processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.